Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Rock and Talk with Dak. Today we're going to be talking about music education in video games. Stay tuned. Thank you all for tuning in today. I have to apologize that it has been a bit of a dry spell recently. It's really just life coming up, things going on, friends and family, and trying to find a job. That's kind of a big thing right now, so getting into the swing of that and just lots of stuff going on. So I do apologize for not being on here as much recently, but rest assured, I'm still very much dedicated to having this podcast stay up and running. I got to thinking about it. I don't think I've been running it long enough to really get the fruits of the labor out of it yet. So there's still a long ways to go for this, and I am actively looking at the idea of turning this to YouTube and having that kind of a thing going on. That way you could see my beautiful face. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, I do apologize that it has been a bit of a dry spell. But again, I'm dedicated to the show. Some things are changing. One thing that's happened, I do have a new microphone, so hopefully maybe you hear the difference. I mean, at least I did when I've been going through and testing it out. And actually, one thing that I'm still working out is I have a mixing console now, a mixing pad. So if the audio does sound weird, bear with me because I am playing around and learning how to use a mixing console. And I don't know how long I spent just recording, pausing, playing around with different settings to make it sound good. And I know there's still room for improvement, but I think I got it to a really nice point. So anyway, things are changing. Dedicated to the show. I think biggest thing that may happen is maybe this is going to go down to once a week for right now, while I do find a job, get back into that a little bit. So still going to be an episode, just things are going to change, and it's definitely going to be a lot more casual. One thing that I've gotten into is what I feel comfortable with, I suppose, and that is being very casual, just kind of hopping on like, hey, we got news today. Hey, here's a review. Hey, let's listen to the song. So a little bit more casual than what I anticipated. So I'm probably going to do an announcements thing just for that later, do an episode for announcements. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about music education in video games. And really didn't think I had much to say about it until I really got to thinking about kind of me and learning music, how to play an actual instrument, where that started. So we're going to go back in time a little bit to the mid 2000s. 2005, I think, is when this happened. So first and foremost, I've had music education before. I've been playing some sort of instrument really since fourth grade, when we had to choose what instruments we were going to be playing. I mean, heck, elementary school, really, it started with the recorder and playing hot cross buns on that little thing. But then that transitioned to I've played French horn, baritone. I've done piano lessons, drum lessons, and beyond that, it's kind of dabbled in a myriad of other things. But for where I'm at currently, journey starts in 2005, and I guess a little after that. But 2005, there's a little game that came out. Some of you are probably familiar with it. It's called Guitar Hero. And for anyone who isn't aware of what that is, it's a video game where you play on a little plastic guitar, which is just, it's a type of controller for the console. But that's pretty much what it is. You whatever sort of notes are showing up on screen, I wouldn't say pick, but you hold down that particular button on the controller, and then with your right hand you strum, or if you're left-handed, whatever. I'm not discriminating. So that's really what it is. It's a music simulation game, I suppose. And 2 years later, in 2007, Guitar Hero's monopoly, they no longer reign because Rock Band came on the scene. And I don't know why, like, there's this community difference of, like, Rock Band being, like, the target of those games, whereas Guitar Hero's the Walmart. There's a little bit of a feud, but it's all in good fun. So I wound up getting Rock Band, and I actually didn't get it till 2008 for my birthday. And I was super psyched to play it. But when I started playing it, I think the first song you play is Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash. And when you first hop in, you're brand new, you're playing on easy difficulty, bare minimum, and you play one note the entire time. You hold down the yellow button, and I think the notes come around. It's like, dun, dun. Super boring, trust me. And I was just like, really? This is what it's all hyped up to be. But by the end of that first game, and by the time Rock Band 2 came around a couple of years later, I was able to start playing a lot of songs. I think I want to say on the hard difficulties when I started to get into that. By the end of Rock Band 2, not much changed with Rock Band 2, maybe some UI enhancements, but there wasn't really anything besides new songs and your campaign is going on the road kind of thing. Nothing crazy still. But by the time I was done with that, there were a couple songs I was starting to really get a handle on expert difficulty. And then we had, I think, Lego Rock Band came out in between 2 and 3. But anyway, 3 came around. Same thing, played around with it, enjoyed it, didn't do a heck of a whole. I think 3 is what introduced the keyboard compatibility. So they either sold you one, or if you had your own electronic keyboard, you could plug it in with a MIDI controller, a MIDI cable that actually it attached into like what would be considered the controller, and that just sent a signal. Anyway, but playing that, like the UI for the keyboard was kind of crap, and especially if you don't know your octaves, at least the octaves for what Rock Band was showing, like the Rock Band keyboard, it only had so many. So if you had a bigger keyboard, you would be playing like down at the low end, like what the notes should be in real life if you were to play the song, and it wouldn't register. So it's just kind of crap. I didn't like it. But by the time that I was done playing Rock Band 3, got to the point of playing a lot of songs on Expert. Actually, I think, in fact, most. Had a bit of a dry spell. A few years later, finally released Rock Band 4. And by the end of Rock Band 4, I was bored. I wanted something more. I was just like, all I'm doing is spending money on DLC for a whole bunch of new songs that I know I'm going to play once and get, a good 90+% of the notes in the first go. So I was bored. I wanted something different. So I kept all my Rock Band stuff until pretty recent. I think in the last couple of years I've gotten rid of all my games and all the plastic controllers because I wanted to start playing an actual instrument, and I figured what better place to go to than, one of these instruments that you play in Rock Band. And because I have chubby fingers, and playing chubby fingers is really not conducive for playing guitar, at least if you're trying to learn guitar for the first time, it really isn't helpful having pudgy fingers. So what I wound up doing, I wanted to do bass. I've always enjoyed bass, the sound of bass. I've mentioned that before. Just love it, and I thought, why the heck not? That'd be a place to start. There's only 4 strings. You don't really play chords very much, so it's really just like one note at a time. So I bought a bass guitar from, KSL, or I guess Craigslist. KSL is a local classifieds thing. So started playing around, and I was like, I can't teach myself a stringed instrument. It's too hard. And, over that year, I discovered a game called Rocksmith. And this is kind of where my journey takes me up until now. So Rocksmith is really cool because if you buy the game, you have a special cable. It's USB into the console, and then on the other end is what you plug into your guitar. Super cool. And it's so much more than that. So you're able to play a real bass, real guitar, whatever style it is, if you're left-handed, whatever, you plug in any guitar, any bass, and it's going to work. So what I really like about Rocksmith is that it's not just like, oh, hey, hop in and play songs. They actually have a whole lessons systems built out for if you're playing bass guitar, if you're playing lead guitar, or if you're playing rhythm guitar. And those do have some different styles, and you go through lessons and play. And then you can go and play a song. They have technique games, so if you're trying to do a bend, it's like a little, I think it's called Guitarcade, but, one of the games, if you're going to bend your string, the one game that they have for that is you bend your string to let a vine come down, and, so it's kind of fun. You have to go and see it for yourself, and I'll probably post a couple things on Instagram about it. I really love it. It's super fun. And you learn, really, I've gotten to the point where I feel a lot more confident in playing a bass guitar, and there's a few songs that I have down in my memory now. Like I could go into a store, pick up a bass guitar, and just start belting out these songs. And that's really gratifying. That feels super cool. And it's building an actual skill. something that's real life. Like, you're not going to go take your little plastic Guitar Hero guitar and start making money off of that. No one's going to care. But being able to play an actual instrument, that's just like, it's the next step beyond that. And I love it. So over the last couple months, that's what I've been playing. And when I first started playing earlier in the pandemic, I was like, okay, I still got some chops. I'm a lot more proficient than I remember, because I haven't picked it up in like 6 months to a year prior. Didn't play it much last year. And I figured I'm going to buy myself a new bass if I'm going to do that. So I did. And what a world of difference, just having a better bass that isn't from Craigslist. The way it plugs in, tuning's a lot easier. It's just amazing. And I love it. I wouldn't change it for anything at this point in time. So if any of you, and that's kind of why I did this episode, I don't know if you want to learn a new skill, you haven't played guitar or bass in a while, you want to get back into it, or you want to start learning from scratch, kind of like I did. I mean, my experience for playing a guitar was a little plastic instrument that had 4 frets on it. And you couldn't really do any fun combination like that. There weren't actual chords to be played. I think whatever the most recent Guitar Hero is, they totally redesigned their instrument to where they had 6 notes on, technically like 2 separate strings, so you could play a little bit more. But I love Rocksmith. I really do. And it's made a world of difference. I feel like I'm actually learning something. And I try to do at least 30 minutes every day just to play with it. And it's kind of the best. One thing on there, I didn't play, so as many of you know by now, Rush is my favorite band. And there's some Rush that's on Rocksmith. I haven't touched Rush until now because and it's not just Rush, there's other bands on there that I still haven't touched yet. Because I know what, like, that musician, I know their skill level, where they're at. I don't want to touch that music because I'm going to start playing it and then just fail so hard. I'm not going to want to play it again. And that's why I got to the point where I feel confident enough playing some of these things, got myself a new guitar, quality of life difference too. Strings are just so much neater on there, sounds great. I feel a lot better, and there's a couple of those songs now I'm in the 90% for learning. Like, that's amazing. It's not perfect, but we're getting there. Practice makes perfect. And kind of a fun little way that I guess one way, I'm sure there's other statistics in the game itself, but to track, there's achievements or trophies if you're on PlayStation for, is it 10,000 hour rule, I think is what it is. So there's achievements like, hey, you've played 10 hours of Learn a Song. You've played 25 hours of Learn a Song. So you do have some of those achievements that pop. You're like, oh, I've been playing this for 100 hours now. Holy crap. So it's the little things that build up, and I love it. And I could go into more depth on it, particularly the UI layout and some of the different controls that they have in there, some of the unlockables. I may just wind up doing a full review, but I wanted to get this out there and get it out to some of you. Yeah, if you want to learn something different, haven't picked it up in a while, want to start fresh like I did, Rocksmith is definitely the place to start. And in the lessons that they do have on there, it's not going to teach you everything that there is to know about playing a guitar, especially like music theory. They don't really touch on that. That's higher level. Something like scales. They have some technique games, some of those that I talked about earlier, for scales, but there really isn't like a lesson. It's like, hey, this is a scale for this. You just kind of have to find those out on your own. But it's a great starting point, and I wouldn't change it for anything, and that's why I wanted to do this episode, just to present it to you all, and hopefully you can take it and run with it, or if you know someone who wants to learn, tell them about Rocksmith. So that is what I have to say about that today. I want to thank you all for joining me this week on Rock and Talk with Dak. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify, so you never miss a beat. If you enjoyed today's episode, please go ahead and leave a rating on iTunes. Give me feedback on Twitter, just spread the word and tell a friend. That all helps too. And as usual, this presentation is always made possible by listeners like you coming in every week, so thank you for your support. Be sure to tune in next week, and remember, if there is no path before you, create your own. See you next time.